Warning: this podcast contains descriptions of events that may be upsetting. Please take care while listening.
Hello.
How you doing?
How y'all doing today? Good. Take a look at your driver's license real quick if I could.
It's December 15th, 2022, on Interstate 70 in Indiana. It's been about a month since the murders on Kings Road. A white Hyundai Elantra is pulled over for tailgating.
See, he's right up on that van, man. He was right up on the back end of that van.
Behind the wheel is 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student at Washington State University. His father, Michael, rides shotgun.
We're slightly punchy because we're driving for hours.
Days.
We're driving.
Bryan and his father are on a cross-country road trip from Pullman, Washington, to the Kohberger family home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. The officer chats briefly, issues them a warning, and lets them go.
Okay. So do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay? All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
But unbeknownst to the Kohbergers, this isn't a random stop. The FBI had tipped off local police to help keep an eye on them. Just 10 minutes later, another officer had pulled him over for the same reason. No tickets were issued, but these stops weren't coincidences. Authorities were closing in.
Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of room, okay?
This is Gem State, the Idaho student murders. This is episode 2. Who is Bryan Kohberger? Last episode, we walked through the grim discovery on November 13th, 2022. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were all found stabbed to death in an off-campus home. The police were chasing leads, and one stood out. A white Hyundai Elantra spotted near the crime scene. That clue would take detectives 2,500 miles across the country. Police Captain Lanier told the press that he wanted to locate the occupants of that vehicle.
So we specifically want to talk to them, and we want to know who they are and what they might know or might be able to contribute to the investigation.
The car was only one piece of the puzzle that helped police uncover a name that is now a household name.
28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger.
Bryan Kohberger.
Bryan Christopher Kohberger.
Quadruple murder suspect Bryan Kohberger is in custody.
Today, we're going to detail how police managed to find their suspect. Who is this man accused of a crime that gripped the nation? And what do we really know about Bryan Kohberger? How did a criminology PhD student become the prime suspect in the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students?
An FBI profiler said Kohberger focused his studies on criminology to fight his own demons of wanting to kill.
I do apologize if I was asking you too many questions about the law.
We did know he had an obsession with criminology.
His attorney in Pennsylvania said Kohberger was eager to be exonerated and described him as an ordinary guy.
I'm actually just from a very rural area.
Now at 5 o'clock, a suspect has been arrested in connection to the killings of 4 University of Idaho students found stabbed to death in their beds last month, and that person is now awaiting extradition from Pennsylvania. It's the biggest break in the more than 6-week-long mystery, which has prompted speculation across the country. Investigators have identified him as 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger. Pennsylvania State Police arrested him at a home in Albrightsville on a fugitive from justice warrant.
The white Hyundai Elantra proved to only be a small piece of a much bigger puzzle for law enforcement. The evidence that brought that fleet of law enforcement vehicles to Bryan Kohberger's family home in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains at 1 o'clock in the morning on December 30th, it was actually a bit controversial. Ultimately, what allowed law enforcement to put handcuffs on Bryan Kohberger was DNA that was found at the scene, and a family member who was maybe a little interested in their own genealogy. After scouring the crime scene back in Idaho, police found what would become the most significant piece of physical evidence in this case: a knife sheath. And on the buckle, the snap that closes that sheath, was touch DNA, or trace DNA. That's DNA that typically consists of skin cells that have been shed after an object is touched. They now had a sample, but when they ran it through CODIS, a national DNA database, they didn't get a hit. So they employed a relatively new technology.
Murder investigations that only hit dead ends for decades now have new life. New cutting-edge technology is helping identify
Investigative genetic genealogy. Since DNA from that knife sheath didn't match anyone in law enforcement databases, the FBI turned to GEDmatch. GEDmatch is an aggregate of several public genealogy sites like 23andMe. People upload their DNA profiles to those sites in order to explore their ancestral backgrounds. It allows you to upload raw DNA and then search against its database to try and find relatives. It's the same investigative technique that caught the Golden State Killer in 2018 after 40 years of searching for him. Like the detectives in the Golden State Killer case, uploading the DNA from the knife sheath was successful. They got a match for a relative of Kohberger. Bryan himself was not in the system, so they built a family tree based on the relative. Then they started eliminating relatives who could not have committed the crime. In the end, they were able to point a finger at Bryan Kohberger. But they still needed his DNA to match directly against the DNA on the sheath. So they started surveilling him. For the 4 days leading up to his arrest, they secretly collected trash from the home, things like discarded coffee cups. And in the end, it was actually Bryan's father whose DNA was collected. They were able to determine that the DNA found in the family trash was the DNA of the father of the sample left behind at the crime scene.
Last night, in conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger. These murders have shaken our community, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. However, we do believe justice will be found through the criminal process. This was a very complex and extensive case. We had developed a clear picture over time, but be assured the work is not done. This has just started.
Kohberger was cooperative, even calm as police took him into custody. In an odd detail, he was actually up at 1 a.m. in the kitchen, wearing latex gloves. He was separating his trash from his family's, perhaps to avoid the very thing that ended up happening. He was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. The world saw his face for the first time, a mugshot of a man with a blank stare. He was described by some as unremarkable, by others unsettling. But who was he, really? And could he really be the one who committed these violent murders?
But with this one answer, there are now more questions.
I want to know what the motivation was, and I look forward to more communication from our law enforcement as it becomes available.
Quadruple murder suspect Bryan Kohberger appeared in court for a brief status hearing.
This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger.
It's January 2023, and Bryan Kohberger is back in Idaho.
Have you had enough time to speak with Ms. Taylor about your decision to waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
He waives his right to a speedy trial, his defense citing they need the time to prepare. And they would need it. Both sides were gearing up for a legal battle that would captivate the entire nation.
And again, still a lot of questions tonight, including a motive as well as whether the victims knew the suspect at all.
It led us all to having a suspect's face to put on the news. In our newsroom, we quickly got to work figuring out just who this man was.
The spring semester started Wednesday. It's the first time since Kohberger's arrest that students have returned.
Just returning back, it seems still kind of eerie just knowing that Bryan Kohberger is around us in a way.
Bryan Christopher Kohberger was born November 21st, 1994, in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. At the time of the murders, Kohberger was no stranger to Moscow. He lived just 9 miles away in Pullman. A 28-year-old graduate student in Washington State University's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology. A student of the criminal mind, studying forensics, DNA, and the psychology of offenders. Before pursuing his PhD in criminology, he earned an associate's degree in psychology, followed by a bachelor's and master's degree in criminal justice from DeSales University in Pennsylvania. He wasn't just a student. Kohberger worked as a security guard in his early 20s. He was even credited with helping save a colleague's life during an asthma attack. Later, as a teaching assistant at WSU, he led classes and graded papers. But it wasn't smooth sailing. Students complained he was overly harsh, and colleagues reported clashes. Some female students even told professors that Kohberger made them feel uncomfortable. According to an article in the New York Times, one woman claimed Kohberger followed her to her car. By December 2022, just weeks after the murders, he'd been called out by a dean for behavioral issues and was let go. Those who knew him described him as reserved, maybe socially awkward. A former classmate, Ben Roberts, told the Associated Press that Kohberger seemed confident, but like he was always searching for a way to fit in. "It's pretty out of left field," Roberts said of the arrest. "I had pegged him as super awkward." Others noted a physical transformation. He'd lost significant weight in recent years, as much as 100 pounds, though what exactly that meant, if anything, remains unclear. Then, some things were learned that were directly relevant to the case. For one, his online activity. Reports surfaced that Kohberger followed the victims' Instagram accounts. He may have visited their workplace, a local restaurant called the Mad Greek, where Xana and Madison worked. In another shocking revelation, his phone data showed it connected to a cell tower near the crime scene 23 times over 4 months, often late at night. Was he stalking one or all of the victims? Was he learning their schedule? Or just night gazing, as his defense claims? These details are intriguing, but unconfirmed as motive. His defense denies any connection, insisting there's no evidence he knew the victims. And that's the puzzle. No clear motive.
Christina Corbin, Fox News. Chief, have you identified a motive?
We are still looking for more information. We're still trying to build that picture, just like we have stated all along. We're putting all the pieces together, and that will help.
Forensic psychiatrist Carol Lieberman told The Guardian she believes Kohberger's studies in psychology and criminology were an attempt to calm the demons inside him, while learning how to commit the perfect crime. She speculated his rage, possibly rooted in a middle school rejection, drove him to target young women like Kaylee Goncalves. But without a stated motive, it's just a theory. One of many. And Bryan Kohberger's defense had their own theories.
Kohberger's defense has submitted a theory of an alternate perpetrator in the murder of 4 University of Idaho students in 2022. Now they have to justify its admissibility to the court in what our legal expert says might prove a complicated process.
For now, it feels as if the man at the center of these accusations, who he is and what he's now admitted to doing, it's cast a shadow. Why? Why did it happen? We may never truly know. From this point on, Kohberger may not have to say another word. Back in Moscow, university students and staff breathed a sigh of relief after the arrest. More students returned for in-person classes.
Students like freshman Ben Parker.
I feel pretty good about coming back. I was excited to hang out with all my friends I made.
But campus life wasn't exactly back to normal. Students were still scared. Many were traumatized.
The university is trying to do all they can for their students and staff. Many types of resources and support services are available.
We have drop-in support that's available at our counseling center this week and next week. Students can also just call and schedule a regular session with one of our counselors.
There is also an increase of security on campus, and they don't plan on changing that.
1 year ago, the University of Idaho campus was in shock. Tonight, they are united in support of each other and honor for the 4 victims: Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogan.
November 13th, 2022 is a day we will never forget.
Students gather for a vigil in Moscow to mark the somber anniversary.
Shock, anger, and sadness.
Ethan was a triplet. He was studying recreation, sport, and tourism management. His two siblings also attended University of Idaho. The day before the murders, the three had spent the day together. Xana was a marketing major who worked at a local restaurant. She loved EDM music and her dog, named Shoeshine. Kaylee was set to graduate early and had a dream job lined up in Austin, Texas. She was born with thick black curls and a small scar on her head. Her siblings teased that the scar was where the horns had tried to grow in. Madison, Maddie to her friends and family, was Kaylee's inseparable friend since they were in 6th grade. She was described as an old soul. After graduation, she wanted to travel and see the world. The University of Idaho was joined by schools across the region as students held candlelight vigils and memorials. Memorials were held both in public and in private for each of the four. The communities and families have expressed their grief and their resilience as they await justice in this case.
Ethan Chapin grew up here in Skagit County, where he played sports at Mount Vernon High and worked in the tulip fields with his friends. His family has now started a foundation to help youth from Ethan's community.
I love and miss you, and so does everyone who is lucky enough to know you.
While today's focus is on remembering victims, the next chapter of this tragic story will play out in court.
Next time on Gem State, that is not how it works out.
After 2 years of court dates, dozens of appeals, and hundreds of hours planning a complicated trial, the plea deal hearing lasted under 45 minutes.
How do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As we were preparing for the start of trial, along with every other media outlet in the country, we got hit with a surprise right out of left field. Bryan Kohberger has accepted a plea agreement in order to avoid the death penalty.
Are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
We're going to be diving deeper into the evidence of the case against Bryan Kohberger in order to examine why he shocked the world and changed his plea.
Surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen reportedly heard someone who she thought was Kaylee Gonzalez saying, "There's someone here," and a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
This is Gem State, the Idaho student murders. I'm your host, Ryan Oswald. Please take a moment to like and subscribe wherever you are listening. It really helps us out. You can follow our continuing coverage of this case on idahonews.com. Gem State is written, produced, and edited by me, Ryan Oswald. Ryan Hawes is KBOI's news director. Mitch Hansen is our senior producer. Brian Peachers is our associate producer and fact checker. Legal support by Chase Bales. Production coordination by Anna Nicole Wadges. Special thanks to KBOI, KEYE, Como, and KVAL news stations for the use of their coverage. Pete Genesini is director of network podcast programming. Rich Cook is the head of audio at AMP Media.